Hey, my name is Kelly Kessler. I'm the host of the podcast Rewiring Health, and I'm obsessed with helping you stop feeling burnout, living in pain, and anxious about the future. You see, for years, I felt like I was never good enough. I repeated in my head, when I accomplish this, then I'll finally be happy. And even when I accomplished it, there was always emptiness in my heart. I always put others' needs before my own. Negative thoughts ran wild in my head, and I always struggled to truly feel like I could relax and be present. Well, through my journey of healing, rewiring my brain, regulating my nervous system, and reprogramming my subconscious mind, I have recovered from an eating disorder, I have healed from chronic back pain, and I can truly be present with my 2 boys and feel that I am living the life I was destined to live with purpose and with joy. And I'm here to guide you along the same journey of healing. Hey, thanks for listening to this episode. When I struggled with feeling like I was never enough and attached my worth to my accomplishments, I didn't know where to begin. And the last thing I wanted as a high achiever and a perfectionist was someone telling me I need to overhaul my life because I already felt overwhelmed. So that's why I created this free daily checklist to get your nervous system back on track and start feeling free in your mind and body and stop feeling burnout. Grab it in the link below and enjoy. If you're struggling right now and don't even know how to begin to help yourself, or maybe you've gone through something really impactful and still need to do some significant healing, this is the episode you want to listen to. This was such an inspirational conversation that I had with Jess Patz. Jess may be a passionate philanthropist, energetic podcast host, and electric motivational speaker, but back home in Ohio, she's a busy mom of 4. Jess has found a beautiful way to inspire others through her story of domestic abuse survival and loss. She teaches others how powerful their stories are and how to reframe pain into their superpower. Jess has truly taken something that was meant to break her forever and turned it into a tool to help others ignite the future of their dreams. One of the many ways Jess helps others every day is through her I Choose Hope Foundation, an organization dedicated to not just helping domestic abuse victims and their families, but survivors of all trauma in need of emergency assistance. Jess has been featured in multiple media outlets, including television, radio, podcasts across the country. She is thrilled to bring her story of hope, heartache, and healing to you, just so you can discover the bigger purpose that you have in life. All right. Well, welcome back to another episode of Rewiring Health. So excited to be joined by Jess Patz. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Yes, me too. And I can't wait to get into this because, like I was just saying, one of the things that drew me to you was how you talk about turning your pain into purpose. And I want to just jump right into that. If you can talk about how you've done that in life, because like I said, so many people are going through so many struggles and it feels deep, it feels never ending. And if we can learn how to cultivate that inner strength that we have to turn it into something beautiful, that's truly life. So do you mind just talking about your journey and how you did that in life?
Absolutely. This is like my favorite topic, especially to start off with. We have all experienced different variations of pain. And one thing I always like to remind people of is pain or trauma is not a competitive sport. So even though you may hear people who have been through like these really crazy, unimaginable things, it doesn't lessen or take away from your experience and the pain that you have overcome. It's all still very valid. I'm a domestic violence survivor. My first husband was not a good guy. We have 2 children together. He's actually serving 20 years in prison for almost ending his second wife's life. So it has been quite a journey to get to a place where I can utilize something like that for this big, beautiful purpose. And in my opinion, when you are able to take your pain and turn it into something more purposeful, it's like the best comeback story ever.
Totally.
Because usually that pain was meant to break us. And it did break me for a long time. There was about 10 years where I was just lost. I was still in the thick of like court battles and custody and all of this stuff. So it was really fight or flight. I was in pure survival mode. And then once this situation happened with his second wife, which was the worst vindication ever, I realized I had a magnificent opportunity to either stay stuck in this victim mindset and really kind of feel badly for myself and very, very frustrated that we ever had to go through this. Or I could harness all of that frustration and use it as something wonderful to help other people, whether you've ever experienced domestic violence or not. It's a conscious effort and this intentional mindset shift to look at a situation. It's that adage of like life happens to you or for you.
Yes. 100%.
And you just have to work through that. It looks a little bit different for everybody, maybe, but it's so powerful to use these things that tore us down for a very long time as teachable moments. And it takes time and it takes a lot of patience. And in my opinion, self-reflection. You have to forgive yourself for whatever involvement you had in those scenarios, because most of the time, it's not 100% our fault. You take a little bit of accountability and you move forward.
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Absolutely. And I just love how you differentiate life happening to you versus for you, because that's such a huge perspective shift, because there's so many people. And I felt like that too. It's like, why do I keep having all these things happening to me? And why, why am I just attracting this like negativity and like trauma or drama in my life all the time? And it's like, so it's very easy to kind of get stuck in that place where you feel like I'm just a sitting duck waiting for the next disaster to happen to me. And
Yes.
it's so hard to get out of that. But when you can make that transition and realize that it is all happening for you, even though it's so hard to see when you're in it. I mean, it's just beautiful to have that change in perspective.
Oh my gosh, I completely agree. And I feel, whether I call it like the woo-woo scale, some people are very logical. My dad's like very black and white. He has a double masters, and I like operate in this weird land of gray. But it really is what you focus on the most is what you're going to attract. So that's what I always tell people. I felt that way. I mean, by the age of 23, I had left my abusive marriage. I was a single mom on food stamps with 2 kids in diapers. My own mother had passed away. It just felt like, all right, world. But if this is what you're constantly focusing on is poor me, why did this happen? This is awful. And you dwell in those low moments, that is what you're going to notice more. So if you shift that perspective and look at any kind of, even if it's like a sliver of positivity and silver lining that came out of that, you're going to start to see that and attract that more in the world around you, certainly.
Absolutely. And it does, some people might be listening, it does feel like woo-woo, but there is an actual science to this, and it is how your brain's wired. And I talk about this as that reticular activating center. It's literally, that's part of the brain that filters out all the noise. So if you're saying focus on what's good in your life, it'll filter out everything that's not. And then you change your energy state. And then now the world mirrors where you're at. So, and that's the beauty of it. And it's hard to get to that point, but once you realize that, like, there is an actual way to change our brain, even if we've been through hell and back, we always have the ability to regain our power. And
I love, you just like spoke geeky language to me. I'm so obsessed in learning how our brain reacts to trauma in life. I first got into it with my 2 oldest children. They, they went through a lot that most adults have not even been through. And I had to learn their brains have literally developed differently because of the trauma. And these neurons fire at a different rate, and their frontal lobe, all of these things that I wouldn't even have thought of. I'm like, there is scientific reason for why I parent them differently, why we engage in activities a little bit differently to try and maybe rewire some of these things that were put together wrong in the first place. And I obsess over that kind of thing. And I feel like I really urge people to do the research. It sounds like you're a great source of that kind of research, because we feel broken sometimes when we move a little bit differently than the people around us. But a lot of times there is scientific evidence and reasoning behind why you feel the way you feel.
Exactly. Yeah. And if you can understand yourself and just realize that this is how the body is made and this is how the brain is wired, and it's not something wrong with you, like your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. And it's doing a beautiful job of keeping you safe, in air quotes, even though it may feel like it's not. That's the whole thing. And it's like, that's the beauty of it. And hopefully everyone who listens to this realizes that after you listen to this episode, you are wiring your brain differently right now. There's going to be something you're going to listen to, and you're going to think about life differently. And now you are allowing those synapses to wire differently, and you're going to be a different person after this.
And then it's that choosing to continue that, I think.
Yes.
Once you get a piece of it, it's just like when people say social media is so blah, and it bogs them down. curate what you're exposed to on social
Yes.
media better. Let it lift you up and build you up and seek out exactly what you feel needs to be poured into you. And then you practice, practice, practice. It's like riding a bike. You can't listen to one podcast and be like, oh, that felt great. I'm fixed. I think
Mm-hmm.
this is awesome.
Yes.
It's that continuation, that repetitive nature of it that really makes it improve and makes it a
100%.
habit. Yeah.
Mhm, exactly. That's I equate it to, like, if you want to go, do a bench press, you're not going to start at 300 pounds. Like, maybe you have to start at a pencil and then celebrate that you did a pencil. It's like, it's
Yeah.
really building the muscle of your brain. And it's like, we don't expect that when we're using our body to go from 0 to 100. Why do we expect that with our brains? We have to
That's a
just
great
allow ourselves to be
comparison.
consistent. Do you mind talking about how you did that? Like, what did your transition look like? Because I know you said it took about 10 years to get kind of in a place where you could feel like you had your power back.
Yeah.
What did that look like as you kind of transitioned into that better mind state?
Um, Initially, a lot of therapy, honestly, a lot of therapy. I didn't listen. I mean, this was over 10 years ago now. So podcasts definitely weren't as available. That's a huge resource for me now. I'm a big audiobook person. I love absorbing and learning. And it was actually in one of the first therapy sessions I went to, trying to decide if my marriage was actually bad and if I could leave, because I'm very rooted in my faith, and we were married in a church. And I just thought, what does that even look like? Am I allowed? And she had given me some literature that, like, it just spelled out my life in black and white. So I kept searching for those things to help me understand. And then the big switch for me was like a leap of vulnerability and authenticity. I
Mhm.
found that I was really hiding. I was doing what I thought was going to help me heal and help me grow and be this better person, but I wasn't leading an authentic life, because most of the people at that point around me in my circle had no idea what my marriage had been like, had no idea we were still fighting in court, and the severity of the abuse that the kids and I had went through. And once I just jumped, off of a cliff. I did a Facebook Live and I shared my abuse survival story, like ugly crying, sitting on the floor in my bedroom. It wasn't curated. It wasn't lit perfectly. I didn't have note cards to like follow. I just emotionally vomited.
Mhm.
And from then on, I found myself learning more and really pushing myself to kind of live this life that I wanted. I feel like we get hung up on, maybe I'm not educated enough, or I need more degrees or certifications. I'm not qualified to do this.
Mhm.
And we have these goals set for ourselves. Once I do this, once I do A, B, and C, then I can get to step D. And
Mhm.
I just started living like I was already at step D. I
Mhm.
wanted to be a domestic violence advocate, so I started operating like I was one. I
Mhm.
wanted to be a public speaker and share my story to help transform other people's lives. So I started telling people that's what I did.
Mhm.
And then what you put out, you receive. I started to get all of these new opportunities and meet new people that were at a much like different, they're vibrating much
Mhm.
differently than what I had been used to. And I just really learned to attract those people, not attract them, but follow them, to
Yeah.
seek out that kind of energy, even if it was scary.
Mhm.
So it took, it doesn't always take that amount of time, but then I continued it. I continued therapy. I never say I'm completely healed from my abuse. Letting myself off the hook was huge for my specific circumstance, because there's so much shame around domestic abuse. And why did you stay? Why did you get into it? My parents were very happily married for 25 years. I'm an only child. I went to private school. I had a very privileged childhood in all comparative purposes. So I just had to come to that understanding that I didn't choose this life. This is not my fault. Could I have always been a better person? Certainly. But just that huge pressure, letting go off of my shoulders, opened up this big, bright new world. And then
Mhm.
being brave enough to step forward into those uncomfortable circles was huge for me.
Mhm. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. So much gold in everything you said there. I mean, there's so many pieces of like keeping track of everything I want to touch on, because the first thing that really hit me was like talking about that Facebook Live and like that acceptance of like, this is who I am and what I'm going to show to the world and what I feel. I'm going to close that gap. And
Yeah.
that's a tremendous amount of healing, to not feel like you have that pressure to put on this facade of what's not authentically you. And just, I love that. And just getting to that place where you can accept, like, this happened, this is who I am. And now I'm gonna take it and use it as my power. I love that.
Yes. Thank
Mhm.
you. And it's scary when you do that. I mean, I was
Yeah.
terrified. And I think Brené
Mhm.
Brown talks so much, Brené Brown, about authenticity and the power of it.
Mhm.
And lately, it's risky.
Mhm.
Sharing my story meant I was also kind of sharing my kid's story. It meant I was also kind of sharing his second wife's story, which is not my story to share. It meant, what if his family sees? What if he sees? What if all of these negative things, there's all of these, we what if ourselves to death? So I always
Mhm.
encourage people to take just as anything,
Mhm.
assess the risk in your authenticity, but
Mhm.
it is always so much more worth it. I didn't get any, knock on wood, I didn't at
Mhm.
that moment with that video, no lashback. There was no people saying,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I totally view you differently. I don't want to be your friend. I don't want to be associated with you. No, it was the complete polar opposite
Mhm.
is what happened. And I actually was offered a seat on a really prominent domestic violence nonprofit board in my area because they just happened to see this. And
Mhm.
there's not a lot of people taking up space with these really authentic stories. So
Mhm.
it's not meant to be perfect, because authenticity isn't. And I
Mm-mm.
think, especially in this space with social media, and more now than ever in the year 2023, people are craving realness. We don't need the perfectly curated, edited pictures and, videos. They want to see who people are behind the screen in real life, whether
Absolutely.
that's really high highs,
Mhm.
celebrate your successes, but it can be the low lows, because there's other people out there that have been through that and can guide you, or that are in it right now and they're sitting at home on their bedroom floor feeling completely alone and hopeless. And
Mhm.
just by talking, giving no answers or direction, you help give them hope that they're not alone.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, so true. It is absolutely so true. And it does take more courage to be vulnerable than to have that perfection. I mean,
Hmm.
that's true courage to say, like, this is who I am, like, I'm human, I go through things, I'm struggling, or, whatever it is, it's just to show that and feel like it's okay that I'm feeling like this, because this is the human side of me and we all go through things. And if anybody
Yeah.
says that they don't, they're lying, because there's no way that anybody has this perfect, life and curated life. It's not true. And I find that usually a lot of the people that show that actually have a lot going on, and they just haven't come to that acceptance yet.
Ding, ding, ding. I say you're hiding in plain sight, just like I was,
Yeah.
because we
Mhm.
want to project that we're healing. If we
Yeah.
say it enough out loud, then we're healed and we're better. And we can convince our brain that everything's fine. But you
Yeah.
got to put in the work. You have to do the work, just
Yes.
like anything. 2 + 2 isn't going to magically equal 4 until we do those equations and put the right foot forward. It's possible. You have to do the work.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And one other thing that you talked about is that, having those, like, feeling like, you were going to be this advocate for domestic abuse, and feeling like you didn't have the resources, or what you weren't enough to do that. And it's like
Hmm.
overcoming those limiting beliefs, and then now creating that being, like, you actually became a different person because you stuck with that, and having that mindset that I'm going to do this and this is who I'm going to become. And that's everything. We actually have to become a different person to have a different reality. And you always have enough. You are more than enough. And it's like, I think we all get stuck in those things. Like, I just need one more certification. If I just read one more book, I'll feel like I have it. Or if I just do this. And it's like, there's always going to be something else that you feel like you need. But
Hmm.
at the end of the day, you have to do it scared. You have to do it feeling like you're unprepared. You have to push out of that comfort zone to ever become something different. And I just love that you did that. And you're a testament to that.
Thank you. Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, everybody can do it. You just have to
Yeah.
believe in yourself enough and shut
Mhm.
out all of that noise. I
Yeah.
still to this day get hung up on am I good enough? That imposter syndrome and the limiting
Mhm.
mindset. I
Mhm.
had my youngest, my fourth is a year and a half. I went through crazy postpartum with her. I've never experienced that before. So then I
Mhm.
was trying to navigate postpartum and being a mom of 4, and you go back to work. And when you are kind of an entrepreneur and you work from home, there's no maternity leave. There's no set schedule. So what does that look like? And you feel all this pressure. And I was just go, 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 how I usually do, and crashed. and
Mhm.
missed out on things professionally in my mind.
Mhm.
I couldn't fulfill some of the goals I had set out. And then I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I got to throw in the towel. What am I doing? Who am I kidding? My kids need me. I'm just going to go work at McDonald's. No shade to anyone that works at McDonald's. Just as a speaker, that's not on my resume, something that's really going to benefit that career. And I had to learn, I kept feeling when I met my now husband, I need to get back to her 3-4 years ago, that version of Jess, because man, she was confident and successful and doing all the stuff that I want to do now. And I love what you said, like, why would I want to be the person I was 3 or 4 years ago? Then I have had no growth. I
Mhm.
need to be the changed and transformed Jess that has had another baby and experienced postpartum depression for the first time. What have I learned from that can make me better? So
Mhm.
even though I like preach all of these things, I still catch myself needing to really apply it to my own life in real time. So it is just that constant, consistent practice. You're going to be down. I was down for a hot minute, like a year after having her. I'm still trying to kind of work my way out of it. So
Mhm.
that grace, I think, is also really important when you're in those kind of transformational periods, and maybe being authentic or vulnerable is terrifying for you. It's okay. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to come all at once, and you're going to feel like out of it, and you're going to not feel like yourself because you're not, and you don't want to be. You want to be this heightened individual. So give
Absolutely.
yourself grace to like get comfortable and find your footing.
100%. Yeah. And it is about those check-ins and having that awareness of where am I right now? What do I need? Because sometimes we think we got to go, 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 but maybe it's that pause to
Mm-hmm.
have that moment of like, okay, what do I need right now so I can continue to move forward? And it is, I genuinely believe that you are best suited to serve the past version of yourself. So now you have just gained a new gift going through, as hard as it is, that postpartum and struggle and everything you go through, but you're going to strengthen yourself to a point where now if you have somebody who's also going through that, you're going to be better served to help that person and guide them through that. And
I
that's
love that you
that's
said
the
that.
beauty of it.
I was at a conference in Atlanta not long ago, and Ed Milet had said that whenever
Oh, I
we're
love it,
looking in
Violet.
business,
It's
like a
my
complete
favorite.
side note, he was the best I've ever seen on stage. The
I
way he tells a story and his presence,
love it.
he like masterful. It blew my mind. But that was one of his key things was you are best set to serve the past version of yourself, even if it's the past version from last week.
Yeah.
You can still help because that's especially right now with follower counts and all of these other things that matter so much. You have 2 people following you and you still have people looking to you for something.
Yeah.
You don't have to be this huge influencer in that kind of realm. You have learned something else that somebody else has not yet to learn and work their way through. And
Yeah.
that's what I always try and look at, even hardships in my life in general, just as chapters. So that postpartum is another chapter that I get to, not have to, that I get to now add to my book. And I can share what I learned and how I worked through what worked and didn't work, and then connect people on a level that I couldn't before. I could empathize as a mom. Sure, I can't even imagine. That would be terrible. And now I can share my personal experience.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's a gift in a way, even though it stunk. Now I'm on the other side and I can see what it's given to me.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
that's really the true beauty of it. It's like when you're in the thick of it, it is hard to see that as a gift because you're like, well, you don't understand. Like every day I'm struggling. And so it is like, if anyone's listening to this, it is truly a gift. And if you're in the thick of it, it may be hard to see it as that, but you will get to a place where you realize it truly is. And it
Mm-hmm.
is going to be something that you're like, wow, I got through that. Like, how strong am I? I've got through that. I came out on the other
Yeah.
side and I'm better for it. And you'll
Give
realize
yourself those flowers.
that's
I,
it.
I love the phrase, and I actually learned this probably within that 10-year time span. It was like my mantra, and like little affirmations I tell myself was, this too shall pass. And now
Mm-hmm.
I've adapted in the good times as well, whether it's good or bad. You feel great. Like I'm in this love bubble. I got engaged with this great guy. This too shall pass. Low moments will come. But that is what I tell myself when I'm really stuck and I feel like I don't have the answers. I'm depressed or I'm sad. I'm tired. This isn't clicking. What am I doing wrong? This too shall pass. And you will find your way out of it. And it's such a simple phrase, but it will. May
Yeah.
not pass as quickly, usually doesn't, as we want it to, but it
Mhm.
will. So
Yeah.
you have gratitude on one side and then just that pause and appreciation on the other side. And it's a good balance.
Yeah, totally. It's so funny you say. I literally said that to my son the other day. I'm like, everything is temporary, so just enjoy the good moments. And understand that even the bad ones will end, you know? So
Yeah.
it's so true. And like you said, it is simple, but it's such an important concept, because when you're going through something that's absolutely tough, you do feel like it's going to be the rest of your life. And you feel like you're going to struggle with that same thing the rest of your life, because it just has this way of feeling like it'll never end, but it will. And you
Yeah.
just have to, it's going to make you resilient. It's going to give you strength. It's going to give you power. You just have to work through it. And it's tough to see when you are in the thick of it, but it's so true. It's
I
so true.
completely agree. I call it, like, sometimes I equate it to life as a teenager. Like when you're a teenager and your friends are fighting, or you break up with maybe your first boyfriend, and it literally seems like the world has ended and it
Yeah.
will never get better. And your parents keep telling you, oh my gosh, there's so much life left to live. And these friends aren't even going to be your friends in
Yes.
10. You're like, whatever. No,
Yes. Mhm.
that's how trauma feels sometimes. You can't
Yeah.
even begin to understand that there's actually an other side to all of that pain, because it's really hard. You're so weighted down. It's just so heavy to take that first step and kind of break through that brick wall that we've built up. But then once you do, and you see these little glimmers of light, that's what I
Mhm.
really tried to focus on visually through my postpartum depression. Was, okay, I did this one thing. I launched
Mhm.
my own podcast. We're one episode in. That
Mhm.
is a win. I'm going to
Yeah.
celebrate it. This is a glimmer of light that I'm doing things in the way that I used to be able to do them, and in a new and improved way. And you
Mhm.
cling to those moments. You don't need these huge, like, I don't know, groundbreaking, earth shattering transformations all the time. It's just
Yeah.
small stuff that gets you to those moments.
Oh my gosh, completely. That's everything. It's that compound effect. It's you start the smallest you can and do whatever you can. If it's 1 minute of something that you would do differently today, celebrate. That's 1 minute. And
Yeah.
it's so true. And not feeling like, oh, well, that's not good enough. I didn't spend an hour doing this personal development. Well, you know what? Maybe an hour would have backfired if you did it, because your
Right.
brain would be saying, I can't do this. This is overwhelming. And now everything spirals. Like, it's those little things, and celebrating it. Like you said, you have to celebrate it. You have to celebrate yourself and give yourself a big clap. So, like you did it
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what you're experiencing. So true. And
I
it's like,
love that perspective.
yeah. And like when we're in survival mode, it is like, it's hard to think rationally. Like, you could tell yourself this, but you're like, but not right now, not right now. But it is, if you can just say 1 minute of something different, that's it. Now, okay, maybe you open the door to see something differently. And now you
Yeah.
can start calming your system down to actually feel like you're thinking more logically.
That's so true. And that fight or flight is real, but there's also, people forget, fawn is like never really talked about. And that is fight, flight, excuse me. Fawn is,
Mm-hmm.
what I have learned, is almost this like complacent people pleaser. Well, just, I don't matter anymore. So I'm going to take a step
Yes.
back, and whatever the world says around me, that's okay. And I think the power in just being able to acknowledge where you are in that process.
Mhm.
Even as a parent, I've learned that when my kids are in that like fight phase, and they're in pure survival mode with me, I'm like, we're not engaging anymore. I'm
Yeah.
not going to get anywhere. I'm going to beat my head against this brick wall with you. I'm going to wait till things diffuse and we can talk rationally. And it's the same with your self-talk. When you know you're spiraling, don't try and do like these big crazy things and convince yourself of all of that. You're not going to get anywhere, and you will make that problem worse. I feel like there's a lot of these expectations, whether it's, you need to go to the gym, and then cardio, and then weightlifting, and eat right, and sleep right, and then personal development. And listen, all of those things are incredible tools. Do you have to do them every single day for an extended? No,
Mhm.
fit them into your life. You can genuinely, which we forget, we have the power to create our life in the way that we want it to, that it suits our needs best. So
Exactly.
you take these pieces from people that you learn, and it's great, but you have to adapt them. It's just like when you're in a workout class and someone says, modify it if this is too hard. Put your knees down for the push-ups. Don't do military style. Allow yourself to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. Doesn't mean you're less than. You're just, what your limitations are. That was the biggest thing people ask me often in terms of like love after abuse. How do you find love? How do you trust yourself or other people? And I recently have kind of discovered, I think it's the same for business and really being true to yourself in business. You have to love yourself more than anybody else. You have to be so okay with that relationship failing or this potential business deal failing, because you are so grounded and rooted in your purpose that it will be fulfilled in one way. Even if this is not the way, It's okay because I'm on the right track and at least I'm trying.
Yes. Oh my gosh, so true. It is. And business and life parallel completely. It is so true. And it can mess with you for a little bit because until you get to that point where you're like, okay, that is okay. I think it's okay. But it is so true. And it's like when we ignore our needs and we know if we deep down think about what do we really need, we kind of know a lot of times we need to like figure out how to relax and learn how to relax, learn how to have fun. But if we ignore it and say, I'm just going to go to exercise because this is what I do, I exercise, or I stick to this regimen, I don't care. And we ignore our needs, or we constantly are people pleasing and trying to fill everyone else's needs. What we're telling ourselves is that you don't matter. Your needs don't matter anymore. And now your brain interprets that as like, okay, I don't matter. And what do you think it's going to do? It's going to yell louder because it wants to feel heard. And
Yes.
now we're talking about getting into that cycle. Like if you're ignoring your innate needs, now your brain's yelling louder. You're just getting further in that fight, flight, freeze mode. And you're not
Yes.
ever quieting yourself down. Mm-hmm.
That's a really good point. 100% agree with that.
Yeah, it's so true. But yeah, I mean, like I love what you said. You have to be okay with whatever happens because I'm where I need to be. And
Yeah, that's scary
yeah.
because I've never been like a huge people pleaser growing up. I was like, I'm quirky. I say weird. I'm like a soda, sneakers, sofa. Everybody mocks me. My nickname was Just Man because I was a gymnast. So I was like jacked, but it didn't phase me. I was like, yeah, I'm Just Man. I'm really cool. I could beat your butt. I could do more push-ups than you. Let's go, bro. It didn't. And as I got older, I just lost sight of that. And it wasn't a people pleaser, but I really sought out like external validation. Okay, I had this really cool idea for a business, but I need to tell 12 other people to have them confirm that it's really cool, or that I met this guy, this is what he's like, everybody else needs to be on. No, because it's my life. So why would they all agree with me? I am called to do what I am called to do. You may hear it and be like, that sounds insane. Well, guess what? That's not your calling. That's not your purpose. Of course, it sounds crazy to you. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. I have very close, trusted people around me that I really respect and I bounce those ideas off of because I know we're kind of on the same trajectory. But you weed out who those people are, or else you're just going to shoot yourself in the foot all the time because they're going to be like, I don't know, that sounds crazy, or that's too big, or are you qualified enough? I really struggled with that as a speaker when I started because I was like, well, where do you go? I don't have a college degree. I dropped out of nursing school as a single mom. Do I need a degree? Do I need like a certificate or a licensure? Or like, how do you prove yourself as a speaker? And there's so many things you prove by actually doing. The proof is in the pudding. You just start. People ask me that all the time. How did you start? And I said, I sat on my floor and did a Facebook Live. And I did it again and again and again. And then I just started to say, I'm a speaker. And you learn as you go and you kind of hone in on the tool that you want to be able to be very confident in. So you're like, maybe, I hate the phrase fake it till you make it. Believe it till you see it, maybe a little bit more. You believe in yourself and have this faith in yourself, but you just have to get out there and start doing those things. And eventually you're going to believe it like for real life and be completely solid. I don't need to be on like these huge stages right now. I know eventually I will be. I've spoken and done some pretty incredible, impressive things, which is weird for some of us to say. We don't always give ourselves a pat on the back. Like it made me sweaty just saying that. I really
Again, the visceral reaction.
I'm not conceited, I swear. But we should be proud. We should be so proud because whether you've been through crazy, like unimaginable trauma, the thing that I've actually heard, I'm going on a tangent recently, is some people will be like, okay, I feel like I could be a great speaker, but I don't have a story. Like I haven't been through hard things, like the typical, you break up with the boyfriend or you do this or you do that. And I always say, everybody has a story. We all have. And I encourage people to we can all look back at life and think of a moment where it's like I apologize for any background noise.
Life,
you
right?
look at something as like before this happened and after this happened. And it could be before I got promoted as CEO to a Fortune 500 company. It could be a beautiful blessing of an opportunity. That's still a starting point where you have learned things, you worked to get there, and you are going to be able to instill wisdom and inspiration to those around you. It doesn't have to be sad, awful stuff. Even with authenticity, I said I sat and cried ugly, and that's how it started for me. But being authentic is just being real. If
Yeah.
you're angry, say that you're angry. If
Mhm.
you're so happy that you feel disgusting and like people are looking at you and your husband in the corner of the booth just vomiting, shout it from the rooftops.
Mhm.
Just unapologetically be who you are. It's not only these sad, unfortunate emotions, it's also these beautiful blessings that we have to do better at, not just celebrating for ourselves, but for those around us.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. And it is so it's those little stories that create you. Like, who are you? And it does come in with a lot of self-discovery of like all these little things that have happened to you. Like once you dive into it, it's sometimes it's hard to think of stories and just pull them out of thin air. But like when you start, you're like, okay, that happened. Or maybe like you're going throughout your day and you remember this memory of like 5 years ago. Like those are the stories that have formed you. And then start
Yeah.
writing those down, realize like, okay, this is like kind of the theme of my life. Like this is what I've learned from each of one of those. And it
Hmm.
is really beautiful. And it doesn't have to be this like overarching, like dramatic thing that you went through. Sometimes it is just like those little challenges that you go through that again, somebody else who's learning from you could be like, yeah, that's my life. Like I had a good childhood, but yeah, I still feel like this. Or, I never had this
Yes.
big thing, but I still feel like this. And you're still there to help somebody. Yeah.
I love that. And it's important. It's like that. Everybody has a seat at the table, because I coined this phrase trauma bomb because I
Mhm.
see people do it. And it's like, if I met you for the first time and said, hi, I'm Jessica, I was adopted and my mom died when I was 20 years old. And my first husband, oh, he wasn't bad. He was in prison. Then I was a single mom, and that was really hard. And sometimes we didn't have money to pay our electricity. And oh my gosh, before I was 30, I had a stroke. And like, oh,
Yeah.
it doesn't sound believable. It doesn't sound inviting. It's not inspiring. It's not because it just sounds like I'm trying to outcompete everybody else who's ever been through. And I am immediately taking away the significance of your story. And
Mhm.
I hate that. I don't ever want people to feel that way. So even when you are maybe just starting on being authentic, even if it's in like a workplace, traditional corporate situation, there are those risks, and you pick
Mhm.
and choose what you share when, because the beauty of really pulling people in as a leader, even with the art of storytelling, is allowing it to unfold
Mhm.
organically and
Yeah.
share these different pieces of you with your staff, with your audience, because it just makes them feel more connected. It's that like, no, trust factor. We don't
Yeah.
have to share everything all at once, because there is so much power even in the small moments that you drew something maybe immense from, and you should have the right to share what you took away from that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that. I love that point you just made because it is so true. Like when you get to know somebody for who they are today, and then
Mm-hmm.
you find out, like, oh my gosh, you went through that 20 years ago, like, and you're this beautiful person today. Like, that's when you're like, you see the power of transformation. And I love that because if you start out with everything you were 20 years ago and you repeat that story, then who are you really? Like, if you keep telling that story over and over again, but you don't talk about or become the person you are today, then that's
Yes.
who you are. But be who you are today. But that has formed you into this beauty that you are today. And that's the
Love
cool.
that.
Mhm.
And even on the flip side, it's like when you meet people and all of a sudden you're getting like the high points of their resume, and I've done this and I wrote this book, or I make this much money and drive this car in my house. You're like, oh, well, I drive a minivan. I don't like, nice to meet you. My name's Jess. I'm just a mom. You feel
Mhm.
insignificant. So there's that, oh gosh, that's wrapped up in so many different like
Another
insecurities and other
podcast.
things out there when you feel the need to like emotionally vomit on people.
Yeah.
And I'm an oversharer, trust me. But
Mhm.
there's a beautiful way to do it where you really pull people in. I love, it used to bother me. It used to really bother me. But I love when people find out. Now, most people know, I guess,
Mhm.
that I'm a domestic abuse survivor. Oh, wow, you don't look like a domestic abuse survivor,
Mhm.
which is a horrific stereotype to have.
Yeah.
But thank you. I don't know what they look like. And
Mhm.
B, because I've worked really hard to get to this place that I'm at now. And
Mhm.
I want everyone to know you can get to that place too. It doesn't have to be the scarlet letter that you wear on your chest for the rest of your life, but it is part of like the DNA of the backbone of the spine of the book of my life. I'm not just going to erase it and act like it didn't happen. Because when you do that, that's what I did for 10 years.
Mhm.
And then it doesn't serve you at all. You are halted right then and there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like it's the difference between using it as your foundation versus defining yourself by it. And there's such a big difference of that. And it's like it doesn't define you, but what defines you is the compassion you showed yourself from that, and also the celebrating the success that you've experienced from that. And now that's what's defined you, is like, how did you take that awful thing that happened to you, but then what did you create out of that? And then now that's you. And that's the beauty of it.
Thank you. I agree. And I think even like if you are someone who maybe has been through something awful and you're like, okay, I want to share, but I don't know how, or like, what do people need from me? Where do I start? So I'm not trauma bombing and overwhelming people.
Mhm.
It's that perspective of what, if you look back when you were really in the thick of it, what is one thing you wish someone would have done for you, said to you, helped you with, and then that's the problem that you solve. And you just build out from there. You focus on that, because that's how I started an organization called I Choose Hope. It's a foundation to help domestic violence victims and their families. And I really hyper fixated on what did I really need back then, going through this as a single mom, being so young, what would have helped me that we didn't have. And then it's, it's not this big thing, maybe all of a sudden, but you just start to figure it out. Don't put so much pressure on yourself to be like, I need to completely eradicate domestic violence from the universe altogether.
Mhm.
It's a big undertaking. Just start small and practical, so you're setting yourself up for success on the back end of it. And then it will grow to be even bigger than you could potentially ever dream of, for sure. That I know of. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Do you mind just speaking on your foundation a little bit more? Just like, what do you do and how do you help people?
Absolutely. So it was really created after I had the opportunity to sit on a board and been a survivor and really come through a moment where I was in a better healed place, not fully healed, but in a more healed place. And I saw these gaps in the system. I did not have the opportunity to work with a domestic violence organization when I left my ex-husband. I didn't want to go into a shelter. I knew that. So then there was like not a whole lot of other resources out there. You have food stamps, which of course is helpful. But it's, you're working and you're trying to make ends meet financially. And sometimes there's housing assistance, but the wait lists are astronomical.
Mm.
And a lot of people leaving a domestic violence situation, safety is a very big concern. So we have found a unique way. We've harnessed the power of social media in the best way possible. It started out by sharing a situation. We always protect the identity and privacy of anybody that we help. Safety is of the utmost concern. But we sometimes will put blurbs out. I'll do a video. I'll share, this is what we need. I need 3 nights of a hotel stay. It costs this much money. Can you pledge $25? People will pledge a night. We need help with food. We have relocated to date 7 families, either in or out of the state of Ohio, to get them in a healthier place. That's a much bigger undertaking, certainly. So it's not something we do all the time, but we've furnished houses. We've just provided linens, a couple of meals. It stems from, getting plane tickets and relocation to giving meals and 1-night hotel stay, because it's not things that people really even know where to look or how to find. And then we try really hard to stay in contact with those people. By we, I mean really myself and my husband now. But we have incredible donors on social media, and we check in with them. And if we have a big need, we say, this is what's going on. Can you help? And they'll pledge what they're able to. And it's those small things sometimes that perceive to be small anyway, that just get them on the right trajectory and give people enough time to like breathe before they move on to the next step. So it's like an intermediate emergency assistance program. We have lots of plans to hopefully build out and do other things. Right now, we're really obsessed over creating some kind of rideshare program, because I've had many people reach out to me recently who are like in college, they're working, they're moms or their parents, but in order to get to work, they need a car. In order to have a car, you need to have a good job to pay for the car. And they don't have reliable transportation, and busing isn't great for everyone, or it's not accessible in your area. So like this weird median where they are like, they're capable of supporting themselves, but they don't have the transportation to make that possible. And I found an organization in Texas that does this, and it's only in that area, of course, but they gift people used cars, and they have this scholarship program So like that, I'm putting it out into the universe as much as humanly possible.
Yeah.
I want to find a way to bring that to our area because the need is just immense. That's for sure.
Oh my gosh, what tremendous work. I mean, that's just
Oh,
amazing to have that resource for people who are going through the same thing that you went through. And like, I know it's just, again, that's the gift that you have, that like now you are helping people through a medium that you understand better than
yeah.
people who haven't gone through that. So amazing.
Thank you. I mean,
Love that.
it's just this beautiful responsibility.
Mhm.
It still freaks me out because I never want to give people like the wrong guidance. A lot of it is just talking.
Mhm.
In any form of life, people just want to be heard and they want to know they're not crazy and this experience is happening and it's not okay. You're valid for feeling this way. And that is maybe my favorite part, being able just to connect with everybody on a human level. Um, Oh, I completely lost my train of thought because I went off on a tangent, but thank you for appreciating that. And it's
Yeah.
just the response. Not everybody in my situation who is a survivor can share publicly, will
Mhm.
never be able to share publicly. Had he not gone to prison, I don't know that I would have ever been in a position to share, because then our kids were in the middle and they would get the repercussions and his frustrations. So it is really a unique gift to be
Mhm.
able to have an opportunity to share and then give back, because I know there are so many people who have that heart that are called to do so and they just aren't in a position to do it right now.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, hopefully, again, like I know we touched on this, but like just like you were saying, like if it's even something small, like maybe you can't set up a whole foundation, but if it's just something small and like just being an open ear for somebody who's going through something, I mean, that's an
Yeah.
incredible gift. So it's like just give whatever you can give, and that's the beauty of it. And then now again, you're changing the energy within yourself and other people, but just tremendous work that you do. And for someone who wanted to connect with you and even like donate to your foundation or reach out to your foundation, how can they find you?
So you can find me on all social media for the most part under Jess Patz, JessPatz, as in zebra.
Mhm.
And then we do have an I Choose Hope Facebook page. We don't have a website right now, so you can always reach out to me on there. Um, we accept any kind of traditional donations, and then we have an accredited certified Venmo link that we do use a lot because it allows us to gain access to funds really quickly and then redistribute them equally as fast. So we use that a lot.
Great. And I'll put everything in the show notes too for anyone listening that wants to reach out or contribute. That, I'll have everything there. And thank you so much, Jess, for sharing your journey, sharing your wisdom, your experience. And I just know that there's gonna be so many people who listen to this who will think differently. And like we started out with, will rewire their brain after this and hopefully start to see life in a more hopeful place. So thank you.
I hope so. And thank you so much for having me on. This has been really great.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. Yes, I really appreciate you being here. Thank you. Thank you for spending your precious time to listen to this episode of Rewiring Health. My mission is to inspire hope and healing through science-backed practices. If you found value in this, please share with 3 people and leave a review. By doing so, this message can be spread to those who need to hear it most. Also, to get updates on the most recent episodes, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for being part of this community, and I am forever grateful for you.